Hi everybody. Trish Jenkins here, continuing that letter from prison, Treasures of Darkness. And if you are watching, give me a hoy so I know that someone's there. And anyway, if not, that's okay. I know it gets plenty of views when I look at the numbers, so that's kind of fun. And yeah, I just wonder. Oh, and I decided, it's really funny when I do Zoom. The cropping of the same camera is much tighter, so it's kind of like um, where am I? I've got to do it in reverse. So it's kind of just the edges of the seat, and then when I do Facebook, it comes out even further. So it's like all this extra room. So I thought I'd just put and it's in reverse too. So normally I look at a mirror, and because then it's like what I'm used to seeing. But now this one's the proper way, so I'm seeing how you see me. Anyway, that's okay. But I decided to keep my lights, and of course, I want to rearrange them now, but I won't do that right now. In the Zoom, you can hardly see them, but on here you can see more. So I should maybe lean up a bit closer. But anyway, all right, so let's begin. We finished off with, yes, I had ordered tobacco. Ooh, and I had ordered tobacco for people, and I found out months and months later when I had got tipped back to the prison after getting in trouble in minimum that there was a group of ladies that I could have stayed with, but because I had ticked the box for tobacco, they wanted a non-smoking unit. So that would have been nice to be in a non-smoking unit, that's for sure. But never mind, that's okay. Okay, so we can order from a newsagents each fortnight. So I was able to get some gel pens and a puzzle book to help pass the time. And we do the puzzles in pencil, then rub it out so we can share them around. Gosh, the book looks huge there, doesn't it? It's not that big. Yeah. Such little gestures build relationships between strangers sharing puzzles. The women know that I'm not allowed to talk about the Lord first, so they ask me about him and his church and why I'm not bitter and depressed. They want to know why I'm not bitter and depressed, and that really touches me that they're interested. I'm currently reading Jim Backer's story. I recommend it to everyone, especially leaders. He was one of the many church leaders who fell during the late 1980s and early 90s. As he details his prison experience, I can relate to some of it. One of the anxieties I anticipated was the body search. Some of the girls bank drugs in their body's personal hiding space. Fortunately, laws changed in the late 90s, preventing the physical invasion of a woman's body. But they used to. They used to just, anyway, they used to do that. Can you imagine someone who has suffered the sexual abuse that so many of them have, and then they come to a prison and then they have no power, and then that happens? But it is a handy spot for them to hide drugs. My searches were not as graphic as Jim's. His courage, America is still fairly primitive in their prison system. His courage and ungodly. His courage in the face of repeated disappointments is a testimony to his faith. I cannot imagine the kind of sentence stretching ahead of me that he faced. You can cope with anything for a short time, and thank God his sentence was not the 45 years originally given. But can you imagine being told 45 years and you're already middle aged? That would just be horrific. As I read Jim Backer's book, he mentions preachers I'm familiar with: Mike Murdoch, John Hagar, and Kenneth Copeland. Many had continued to encourage him, visit and write to him. People like Chuck Colson, who went to prison for his role in the Watergate scandal and then formed Prison Fellowship. I'll tell you what, those volunteers from Prison Fellowship are, well, all prison volunteers are so appreciated. But Chuck Colson experienced what prison was like, and it was just inhuman and degrading. And he, when he got out, he established Prison Fellowship, and that has changed so many men's lives. It's mostly for men, but they go into women's prisons as well. It started off targeting men, um, and it's really made a huge difference when you give people that humanity, that give them back their humanity with human dignity, um, and repentance. Just people don't realise the power of that. Becca made the point, as long as we continue to try to defend our past or cling to our innocence, we're still being held hostage by prior events. I can't help thinking, comparing to the era we have now with, with Black Lives Matter and the cry from those who've been oppressed, the cry for justice, and some of the white voices, sadly even religious ones, who deny that the oppression is still going on, or say, well, look, I wasn't there, I didn't do it. It's important to have an ear to listen and a heart of compassion when someone's in pain, regardless of your opinion of whether they should be in pain or not. That compassion is what changes lives. That compassion is what takes action. Defending, there's no defending the past. Like what he says here, as long as we try to continue to defend our past or cling to our innocence, nobody's innocent. Everybody has failed. Nobody is innocent. And when we stop comparing and saying, well, my sin's not as great as that person's, then we're being self righteous and clinging to, we'd rather be right than have the gift of true righteousness. We'd rather be found right, and we'll be argumentative instead of actually saying, someone's in pain. What would Jesus do? He was the one. He was the one with the outcasts, wasn't he? Yep. See, this experience, it turned my heart. I know people have done bad things. I know that, but they're still made in the image of God, and that messes with my head. it just does. Self righteousness. Self righteousness stinks because nobody's got it. Nobody. I don't care if you've never been to jail. Okay, so I'm no longer a hostage to my mistakes. Instead of keeping it a secret, I want the church to know how easy it is to slip into using scripture to deafen ourselves to that which we don't want to hear. One of my fears was losing the respect of the rest of the church. Well, that was pride, and the Lord showed me I'm not to be concerned about that. So he didn't say, you'll be okay, everybody will be nice. He just went, it's not your concern. If somebody doesn't respect you, it doesn't matter. He also showed me that what I feared in others was in myself. That need to feel like I'm good. I'm good. I'm a good person. I'm okay. Like that's important. But all that matters is who I am before God. When the televangelists began to fall in the late 1980s, I was just as upset and angry as anyone. It's embarrassing. How could they do it? How could they do it? I was embarrassed as a Christian, and as many of you were, and we had to cop the flack from people pointing fingers and going, yeah, your mob. It's like, yeah. But there's no need to feel that way, because God is not embarrassed about how his bride looks. People are still hungry for God. We're supposed to restore those who fall in a spirit of humility. There but for the grace of God go I. You don't know what pressures will come to bear on your life to make the decisions that when you're in your comfy, well-fed, loved condition, you can't imagine what decisions you would make. I had fallen off my own pedestal. Even though many injustices happened, I still only have myself to blame. I own that. I've had great compassion and understanding when friends made poor choices. But somehow, like, breaking up their marriage or whatever it might be, backsliding, but somehow I had higher expectations for myself. Pride again. Dear friends, God will do whatever it takes to get your attention. Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. No getting around it. Both Jim Backer and I had to be incarcerated to reach a deeper level of communion with the Lord. I recommend you take the initiative and chase Him so that He doesn't have to try too hard to get your attention. Reminds me of that phrase, best to fall on the rock rather than the rock fall on you. I've been shut down from sharing my faith, and now I'm concentrating on hearing from God. My most regular prayer is that I will be effective and that this experience is not wasted. To this day, that is my prayer, to be effective and that this experience would not be wasted. Whatever you're going through, don't waste a good adversity. You just don't know what can be done with it. When I wrote this, I was sitting in a cell with nothing but shame around me. I had no idea that in a few years I would be traveling overseas and speaking to business groups and ministering to faith groups and being an encouragement out of this experience. Who would have thought? And some of you who are watching this were among the people who were writing to encourage me at the time. And we need each other. That was just so strengthening when I received those messages. Okay. I have a joy that bubbles up continually. These women are so precious. I have asked Jesus to help me see these women through his eyes, and I'm starting to. Where sin abounds, grace abounds more so, as per Romans 5:20. God is just so beautiful in here. Now I'll leave it at that. Some of you who've been in my workshops, you'll know that I often, not just workshops, just almost anybody that I talk to one-on-one when you've been through stuff, is I'll say, ask to see that person, that situation and yourself the way God sees them, because the way we see them is just it's skewed by our pain and our hurt, and sometimes we don't want to. We don't want to. The old saying, put yourself in the other person's shoes. Well, it's even more than that, because when you're in their shoes, that you get a perspective. But if you can ask to see them, say, God, this person has hurt me. They've betrayed me. They've hurt my children. they've misused their authority, they've done whatever they've done, and they don't think they've done anything wrong. They don't see it because their perspective is their opinion is right. That can be the hardest ones to deal with. Bad people do bad things, but when good people do cruel things and don't believe that it's cruel, uh, that's a hard one, especially when it's your kid, say, or someone you care about. Am I speaking from experience? Of course I am. Of course I am. I know what it's like to have to forgive people who've. It's one thing to forgive people who've hurt you. It's a harder thing to forgive people who've hurt the people that you care about. But once again, God, my feelings towards this person I'm hard-hearted. I just angry. I want to tell them. I want them to see what they've done. I want them to understand that they were wrong and that they should not. They had no right. Get to the point of saying, God, can you show me how you see this person? Show me how you see the situation, because your perspective is better than mine. And yeah, and show me in this. If you're brave enough, if you've got the guts to do that, he will. But he'll do it gently and with humour. And you'll just go, oh, okay. And your heart will start to soften and the hard bits will start to melt away. And then he'll ask even more from you, and he'll ask you to pray a blessing on that person. But that's a whole nother, that's going a bit deeper into that workshop. Yeah. Anyway, that's how forgiveness flows. But when you can flow it out, that's when that joy can bubble up for you again. Just some thoughts. So anyway, we're up to 17 minutes. So I will let you go, and we will continue this letter tomorrow. Okay, bless you heaps. Love you lots. Bye-bye.